So we're in your world history book, and we were in section 11.2, and we were talking about Charlemagne's empire. Charlemagne being that Frankish king that basically was bringing back the old Roman Empire as he took over the whole lands, and over 50 years of military takeover, took over all these barbarian tribes, and that he was basically anointed as the king of the Holy Roman Empire during this time. In 814, Charlemagne died, leaving his son Louis the Pious. Louis the Pious is his name. Pious means religious, took over. But Louis was a very weak king, and he lost control. He was losing control of the empire. In fact, he had 3 sons, and his 3 sons fought over control even before Louis died. Isn't that the way it goes? So civil war, that means war between each other, happened between these sons. Finally, the civil war was so bad that they needed a treaty. They needed a treaty to divide the empire, to divide this empire so there would be no more fighting. So the 3 sons decided to meet, and you have this treaty. It's very important that you know the name of this treaty, Treaty of Verdun. Verdun being in France now, but Verdun, very important because that's what set the way Europe is now. Because if it didn't, if they collaborated together as one, this whole area would be one country, probably under France. But now we have the Treaty of Verdun that divided the empire, that set the stage for the modern kingdoms. So how did they divide it? We have the kingdom of Charles the Bald, they called him, and that would be what France is. They have the kingdom of Lothar being actually a buffer between, but we find that Lothar loses this kingdom to the other 2. And then we have the kingdom of Louis the German. So what's this over here? Germany. So we have Germany over here. We have France developing over here. This is down to Spain and Italy. So here, and here's Italy down here. So we have these kingdoms basically becoming nations even today as modern kingdoms and modern nations. So if we didn't have the Treaty of Verdun, maybe we wouldn't have Germany and France. The Treaty of Verdun happened in 843. Like I said before, the division into 3. Lothar being the middle kingdom, Charles the Bald being the western kingdom, which would be France later on, and Louis the German, the eastern kingdom being Germany. So Lothar's kingdom became Lorraine, and it was divided up after his death. After Lothar died, the other 2 kingdoms took over. Charles' kingdom, they spoke French. So Charles the Bald, they spoke French, and that would become France. Louis the German, they spoke German, and it would be Germany where they spoke German. They even had 2 different languages. So kind of the beginning of the nations of Germany and France. Treaty of Verdun, important. Test question. The decline of the Carolingian rulers. The Carolingian rulers, let's do a little history. Charles Martel was the mayor. He wasn't a king. He was the mayor of the Merovingian rulers. Merovingian. I always can pronounce that weird, but the Charles Martel was the hammer, and then his son Pepin became king, and Charlemagne was the grandson of Charles Martel, being this great emperor. But what happened? The decline of the Carolingian, just like the Merovingian leaders, Carolingian leaders started to get very, very weak rulers. From Charlemagne, we have going down, as we just said, we have his son and then his grandsons dividing it up. But then the names went to like the simple, the fat, the stammerer, the lazy. So you can see how people really did not care for the Carolingian rulers anymore. Like, Charles the Simple, or Louis the Fat, or on to Pepin the Stammerer. You know, they always took their names, but they had these weird names they gave him. Or the Emperor the Lazy, you know. So, and the last one died in the 900s. Remember, 800, the year 800 is when Charlemagne actually was crowned by the Pope. He had himself crowned as the Holy Roman Emperor, you know. So, but anyway, there goes the decline. They're starting to decline. What happens then? New invasions happen because we have our weak kings. So the Magyars. The Magyars were barbarians from the east. They were Asian nomads. And here's a picture of them. They're Asian looking. And they were called the Scourge of Europe. And they came in and basically settled in the country of Hungary. So remember, Hungary are Magyars, and very oriental looking, you know, coming from the east, coming from China, that area. So they're coming in and settling in Hungary. And so, and they're starting to get strong because we have weak leaders in charge now. Charlemagne's gone. They're, of course, trying to, because Charlemagne kept them out, and now they're settling into Hungary. Then again, we have the Moors, and the Moors were the Muslims from North Africa. And they're controlling the Mediterranean Sea now in Spain. They're getting a lot of different areas in northern Africa and in the Iberian Peninsula coming in. The Moors being Muslim. So we have the Moors, Muslim being Islam, and we have the Magyars. And then, of course, we have from the north Norsemen. They call them Norsemen, being Northmen. These guys being very barbaric, and they're coming in and going to be attacking the kingdom, the Frankish kingdom, the whole area, and them being a scourge type too, especially of the seas, because they were great navigators, great sailors, great navigators of the seas. The Vikings. These Norsemen from the north settled in Normandy, France. So part of France, the northern France, were Vikings. Vikings were very blonde, blue-eyed, dramatic barbarians. So you have the French, you know, mixing then with these Norsemen in Normandy. So they came actually from the Scandinavian countries. So when you talk about the Scandinavian countries, you're going to talk about Denmark, Norway, Sweden, those areas. These Scandinavian, very north, where it's very cold, they're used to the cold. They sailed the oceans, were very cold oceans. They were untouched by Christianity until Leif Erikson, of course. We find gradually the Vikings getting saved, really getting saved. They didn't necessarily join the Roman Church at all either. They really got saved, and we'll be talking about that with Leif Erikson and Eric the Red. And we know Leif Erikson came all the way to America. So they sailed the seas and took in. They were very hardy warriors, skilled seamen, controlling the seas, ocean, and rivers. They even went to Greenland, which was a very cold area, and very harsh land. They settled in Greenland, and they even settled in North America, went across the Atlantic Ocean into settling into North America and Canada, of all places. So we have these Vikings. They besieged everything. Before they became Christians, they besieged everything around. They took over England, Ireland, Scotland. They raided the monasteries and the villages there until Jesus came into their lives. Let's just say that. So we're going to stop there because we're going to go on to a new section. I know the section was shorter, but I didn't want to put it into the other and make it too long. So now we're going to go into section, going on to section 11.3.